Hello friends and welcome to the Sports Guide. Before we get into today's video, please like and subscribe and share the video. Today we will be doing our 6 sleepers and 6 busts who we think will be very good in a year or two in the NFL and who we think will not do well or not live up to the hype. Basically players who could bust. So with that being said, I want to go first. We're starting with sleepers. My first sleeper is Kyle Duggar, safety out of Lenoir-Rhyne. I think he's a very special athlete. You don't find players of his size, and he's 6'1", 217 pounds. And I say that you don't find players like him because being that size as a safety, he was the best return man on his team. Guys like him aren't easy to find. Basically a running back playing safety who does well at both spots. He is a great, strong safety, but I think he can play free very well. He really impressed me at the Senior Bowl, and he has all the production throughout his college career. In 2019, the numbers are down, but he did miss a good portion of the year due to injury. And the crazy part is about that, he still won the Cliff Harris Award for being the best defensive player in a D2 school. And he basically is always around the ball, and his ability is nothing short of impressive.
My first sleeper in this draft is RASHARD Lawrence, the defensive tackle from LSU. I think in terms of overall athletic ability, he's average, and he's got a decent tackling radius. He's got that toughness that I think can cause players to really excel in the NFL. He has that kind of punch you in the mouth kind of grit. And I think that kind of determination and physicality can only lead to an incredibly high ceiling when it comes to the NFL. And since right now he's sitting at probably a 4th or 3rd round talent, I think if a team can snatch him up in those rounds, I think they're getting a starting defensive tackle for the next 5-6 years. I think RASHARD Lawrence is really, really talented, and I think that he's got the upside to be a consistent starting defensive tackle in the NFL.
Do you think he will be more of a pass rushing defense tackle, or will he be like the run stuffing defense tackle?
He's gonna be a run stuffing. He's gonna clog up the middle. He's not gonna let any offensive guards pull or tackles pull inside. He's gonna be there stuffing the run. He's not gonna be like an Aaron Donald, Quinton Williams kind of defensive tackle that can really break through. But if you want a guy there who's going to stuff the run and let your linebackers be rangy on the outsides, RASHARD Lawrence is the defensive tackle you want to invest in.
I like him. I think that's a really great analysis on him. He's not a pass rusher, so that being said, if you're not a pass rusher and you're a defensive lineman, you're right then and there at least a day 2 guy, possibly a day 3 guy, and I think that's where he goes, is probably late day 2, early day 3. I'm looking at Jordan Elliott, defensive tackle out of Mizzou. This dude has great size, great strength. Some say, and they jokingly say, that he was created in a lab because he's 6'4" and over 310 pounds. He uses his length and upper body power extremely well when initiating contact with his hands to shake off the offensive lineman, push him in the backfield, and basically disrupt the blocking in run games. He also has a quick first step, and it's very explosive, and he excels as an interior gap shooter with good hip mobility and ankle flexibility to present a large surface inside gaps and retain his balance as he works laterally. He pursues the quarterback a lot and as a running back a lot too. If he's not getting the tackle for a loss, he certainly sets up his teammates for that, and honestly, the sky is the limit for this kid. Not a lot of people know about him, but I think he could be similar to Lawrence, late day 2, early day 3. I actually think his pro comparison is Henry Melton from a few years ago out of Texas. He can pass rush somewhat well, and he can stop the run somewhat well. I think he'll be a well-balanced defensive tackle.
Yeah, I think I was looking at him a little bit too. I think he could be pretty good. He's a good balance between kind of a speed rushing DT and just a guy who takes up space. The concern that I have for him is really the fact that he gets beat to the punch a lot by offensive linemen. He often, in the first couple seconds of a battle with an offensive lineman, he often loses. So that recovery ability is really good for him, and he does have a great NFL frame. It's just he's going to have to be faster on the jump and get his hands to a place where he wants them to be, and make sure that he's not grabbed early by an offensive lineman.
And I think the difference between Elliott and Lawrence is Lawrence, I think he'll do a lot better in a 3-4, and Elliott, I think, is better in a 4-3.
All right, my next sleeper is Alton Robinson, edge rusher from Syracuse.
Love this guy.
This man right here, he's a little lanky. His hand technique has been okay, but what I really like about him is his jump off the line. His jump off the line is on an elite level, and he's got the size of a solid edge rusher. Being 6'3" is huge for edge rushers. His technique has been pretty shaky, but in terms of just ability to explode off the line and make a decent read on what the running back or quarterback is going to be doing, I don't think there's a guy that I like more. He does have some issues with being not as flexible, and he also has some issues with finishing tackles. I think if you just break down tackling fundamentals for him and you give him practice in that area, this guy's going to be one of the next, top 15 edge rushers in the league by maybe his third year. This guy, I love this guy off the edge. I'd pick him up in an instant.
I'm with that. I am very big on this kid. I think he reminds me almost of a Robert Quinn-like player, a guy who's good against the pass, okay against the run, and I think he'll be great against the pass. This kid has all the potential to be, like you said, a top 15 edge rusher. All right, my final sleeper is the wide receiver out of USC, Michael Pittman Jr. I am very, very high on this kid. He has the size at 6'4" and at 220. He is a straight-up playmaker. He had a breakout senior season last year. He has great hands. He had something like a 2% drop rate, which was insane. In my eyes, I think he's a top 100 pick. He's your ideal possession wide receiver, and he really can only play on the outside, which is okay. People sleep on his speed. Like, he won't burn you, but he definitely will make your corners work for it and earn that paycheck. And the pro comparison I really give him is Michael Thomas, Des Bryant, Demarius Thomas.
Holy moly.
Or taking it back to his 2005 Plaxico burst. I mean, he's big-bodied. He runs good routes. He has really good hands, and he's basically meant for the end zone. I know that's a hot take to make, but
yeah, seriously, that's quite the comparison. In terms of a red zone threat, I think he's one of the best that's coming out of this draft. When I think of red zone threats in this draft, I think of guys like Chase Claypool, Colin Johnson.
What is going on? What are you doing?
And then I think of Pittman. Dude's hands are crazy. That stat is right. Dude's hands are absolutely crazy, and his catch radius is insane. He doesn't have the best release off the line, and in terms of downfield acceleration, he's not going to be beating anybody on his speed alone. But being able to run routes, and also adding to the fact that he's a pretty sound blocker for a wide receiver, I think this is a pretty good sleeper pick. My last sleeper, my third sleeper, is somebody that I know that we've talked about a lot, is SHAQUILLE QUATERMAN, linebacker from Miami. If you're looking for a first down, second down, run-stopping linebacker that you can pick up late in the draft, this is your guy. As a tackler, the dude is just crazy. He's so violent. He's so strong. He shoots gaps really, really well. He's not going to play Mike in the NFL, but he could certainly play Stan. He's got a decent way of shedding blocks. He's a pretty consistent tackler. He is not the fastest to the sidelines, which is why I would play him at Sam. But if you have a 4-3 and you have a gap in your defense at Sam linebacker, and you're picking in the 5th round, SHAQUILLE QUATERMAN would be my pick every day of the week. He doesn't do third down pretty much at all. Or if I were an NFL coach, I wouldn't play him at third down at all, because his coverage abilities are not super great unless he's on the flat. But if he's attacking the line of scrimmage and trying to stuff the run, or if he's on a blitz, SHAQUILLE QUATERMAN's the linebacker you want. And I've liked this guy for a long time. So I can't wait to see where he goes and see how he does in the NFL, because I think he's going to do really well.
You know, you've talked about him for the past 2 years, and I've watched him play before, and this kid, he is a good player, and you're so high on this kid. And watching his tape, the dude, he shows bursts of being a potential stud linebacker, and he does need a lot to work on. He 100% is a very good sleeper. I like this pick. Moving on to our 3 busts. This time, Lucas is going to start out with his first bust, or who he thinks could be a bust.
Okay, so my first player who I think is at risk of being a bust is Grant Delpit. The reason for this is solely because of a lack of tackling consistency. I think the guy is incredibly fast sideline to sideline. He's got awesome coverage skills. He's an absolute ball hog. But listen, if you can't tackle in the NFL, I don't know how long you're going to last. Or maybe he plays just straight up free safety. I really like Grandola. He's a tough guy. He can do any kind of coverage you're asking him. But it's a pretty universally agreed upon thing that the guy struggles tackling. And I know that he's had some injury history. Like I said, if you can't tackle on the next level, I don't know if there's a place for him. But that's not to say that he can't improve that, and I honestly think that he will. But what I am saying is that it's likely that he busts if he doesn't improve on his tackling.
I can't say I disagree. I agree 110%, and it pains me to say it because I want him to come to the Cowboys. But everything you said, you're speaking the truth. There is concerns. I could see him being a bust. He's not quick enough to be a corner, so he has to be able to learn how to tackle as a safety. And the injury did hurt his tackling. We don't know what the finished product is just yet with Graham. My first bust is a guy, it could be a controversial pick, if you will. AJ Epinesa, the edge out of Iowa. This will shock people. I don't think that he will be a stud, and that's where I'm trying to get at with this. I don't think he'll be a stud pass rusher. I think he will be a great run stuffer who can rush a little bit. Almost the reverse of Robinson out of Syracuse. I think his ability to play 3-4 defensive end or 4-3 defensive end will help him a lot. He is a bigger size defensive end at 6'6" and 280 pounds, but that also leads to him not being as quick as a speed rusher. And the NFL is all about getting to the quarterback as fast as you can. Him not being a speed rusher, he will have to rely on his technique and skill set. And that is pretty good, but I'm not sure if that will translate to the NFL as a top 15 pick. I don't think he's a bad player, but I don't think he'll be worth that first round pick, really. I think his ceiling is about an 8 sack guy, which isn't bad. I'm not saying it's bad. That's edge rusher 2. That's not the guy you're going to double team every single time. I don't think a top 15 will want to spend a high pick on someone like that for that production, but I do think he would be a great fit for like the Patriots because he kind of reminds me of Trey Flowers, possibly like the Titans, and they would let him play next to Casey and next to Simmons, and I don't think he's going to be this great pass rusher everybody thinks he's going to be.
Yeah, I definitely think that he doesn't fit in terms of a 3-4 defense. He's got to be a 4-3 edge rusher. But in terms of being an outside linebacker in a 3-4, I don't think the dude has the ability to do that. So I kind of agree in the fact, so after watching some of his tape, I kind of think he's a little bit of a one-trick pony in terms of moves. And once that first move gets shut out by a good offensive tackle, I think he just kind of panics. But he's where he is now because the moves that he does are really, really good.
Yep.
But I think in the NFL, there are tackles who just lock you up.
Yep.
And that's just what's going to happen. But I certainly think that he's going to be successful on the next level.
Oh, yeah.
I definitely think he'll be an average edge rusher.
I think this dude he's just like Michael Bennett. I don't think what he needs to really develop is having a high motor. You said he's a one-trick pony, and I agree on that. And I think if he develops that high motor, I think he'll have a successful NFL career. I just don't think he's going to be that 12-sack guy. He's not going to be the Shaq Barrett. He's not going to be any of the Bosa brothers. He's not going to be any of the Watt brothers. He's going to be, I hate to say it, a boring pass rusher, and that's what it is.
My next bust is a perfect example of something that I like to call John Ross syndrome, and his name is JALEN REAGOR. This guy screams John Ross to me. He's fast as anything, runs pretty solid routes. His run after catch is awesome, but the dude has hands problems. The dude just, I don't know, he just reminds me of John Ross in this area. I want nothing but success for this dude, but if I have a choice of picking a different receiver like KJ Hamler, for example, I probably am going to go Hamler because I don't want to deal with those potential drops. He's an example of another kind of John Ross receiver.
I can't say I disagree again. Reagor and Henry Ruggs both give me the same vibe. I know Henry Ruggs is a bit better, but with these speedsters who are just known for their speed and blazing by everybody, their hands are always a question. Injury is always a major concern. Like, taking a speedster like these guys is always a risk, and you figure at least one of them has to be a bust, if not both of them.
And the thing is that it's kind of like what I said before, with DELPIT and the fact that if you can't tackle, you can't play safety. It's the same thing with receiver. If you can't catch, you can't play receiver. And if there's any kind of inconsistency with catching, it's going to be emphasized in the NFL.
All right, moving on to my next pick. This guy, you've talked about him before, and I'm not entirely sure. I'm not confident in saying this guy will be a good player. I'm going with Justin Herbert, quarterback out of Oregon. While he does have the size and the arm strength, he could easily be a bust. He lacks reading the defense at times, and he played in a very weak college conference. And when big games came, Justin really wasn't giving you the game-winning drives. You do want your quarterback to give you those drives, and being a top 10 pick essentially, and he can't do that, that is a concern. He could easily be a bust. He needs to work on tricking the defense and disguising plays. He needs to work on where his eyes go when plays break down. Oftentimes, he gives away who he's looking for, and the NFL, they will eat you right up. I think Herbert can excel in the right offense, but at the same time, he does need a lot of work. He does need to work on his progressions. He does need to work on his touch passes.
Yeah, I had similar concerns with Herbert. I actually almost picked Herbert for this. A lot of Herbert's success is going to depend on the people around him. At Oregon, had a few years of a really, really good O-line. That whole Oregon O-line was awesome. So if you have above average players on the O-line that can give Herbert time to make the play, I think he's going to do fine. But if you have any question marks on your O-line that are going to be exposed, and Herbert's not going to be able to take his time in the pocket and focus on making that accurate throw, he's going to get crushed. So I think if he's able to take his time, get settled in the pocket, maybe step up if he needs and make a throw, I think he can do okay. But if the world collapses in around him and he doesn't know how to handle it, he's going to be exposed. All right, and my last bust is Zach BAUN, edge rusher from Wisconsin. I think Zach BAUN, in terms of being an edge rusher and being a true speed rusher around the outside, I think he's good. I think he's really good. I think he's got a pretty solid first step off the edge. I think as a tackler, he's pretty solid. He's really decent at finishing tackles, and it's actually pretty impressive. He's really, really smart in terms of what you need to do as an edge rusher with IQ and reading the play, how play actions work. He's able to do all of that. My concern is that he's just going to be gobbled up by offensive tackles and how long arms can be. Like, I keep thinking about what would BAUN do against an offensive tackle like Mekhi Becton. Big guy, long arms. Guy, if he gets his hands on you, he's just going to gobble you up. And you know what? I don't know if BAUN can beat a tackle like Mekhi Becton, or that kind of offensive tackle at least. So I do think he's really smart, and I think that intelligence is going to get him places. I think he's just going to get gobbled up by a lot of offensive tackles around the edge, and that's my fear for him. I think on stunts, if he cuts inside, he's going to be awesome, but I just have fears that he's going to be gobbled up.
I'm 100% with you. He can only be an outside linebacker in a 3-4 defense. He's too small, and I think he can add weight, he can add muscle, and that's his only legitimate hope of being successful in the NFL. Everything you said spot on. If it's Zach BAUN against Jason Peters, Zach BAUN against Andrew Whitworth, Zach BAUN against Tyron Smith, David Bakhtiari, he needs to really, really work on his hand movement, his technique, and while he is fast, he needs to use all the tools he has available in order to succeed in the NFL, and then some. He needs to add weight, add muscle. I like this pick. My last bust, I'm going to go with Laviska Shenault Jr., wide receiver out of Colorado. I know this is crazy, but while he does have all the tools as a wide receiver, that doesn't mean it will translate well to the NFL. I will give you 3 names who had essentially all the tools. Kevin White out of West Virginia, Josh Doctson, TCU, and of course Sammy Watkins from Clemson. All those guys came out who were first-round draft picks, who had the size, who had decent speed, who had good hands, who ran solid routes, who had good catch radiuses, who were good against contested catches, but they just turned out to be busts. Now, they all flopped for different reasons, but I think Laviska seems like he could fall into the same category as these guys. I don't want that to happen, but I could see it. He doesn't track the ball well, and he has poor blocking skills. And blocking skills might not be that impactful in the NFL. Tracking the ball well as a wide receiver, you need to see where the ball's going. You need to see the protection. You need to read the play. And if he can't track the ball well, how is he going to be able to catch? And he has had injury concerns. There has been questions about his hands. He's one of those guys kind of like Reagor, where once the ball's in his hands, forget about it. But at the same time, if the ball's in his hands, and I could see him being like a Cordell Patterson. If I am an NFL team, I am watching the combine and making sure he has a great combine. And I'm going to ask myself, wow, is he worth the risk? Certain teams need to take that risk, and I think the Bills could be a team. I could see the Eagles doing it too.
Yeah, I think in terms of what Laviska could be, if you're a team that just needs receiver help, like the Raiders, for example. Like, they just need receiver help in any way, shape, and form. A receiver like Laviska would be a good fit for them. But the idea that CeeDee Lamb would be there, which is why I bought CeeDee Lamb to the Raiders, giving Laviska options to become what he naturally will be, which is, it's probably going to be an X receiver. But if you force him into a position of being in the slot, for example, or like you make him a deep threat, like I don't think he's going to be as successful as he would be if you just let him be the X. And I think a lot of teams are probably going to force him into a position where he's not going to succeed. That's why I like the Bills, because the Bills need receiver help, and he can kind of take over and be that guy. I think Laviska will succeed in this league if he's the receiver on the team. He's the guy. So if a team forces him into a bad situation, I think you're not going to get the best out of him.
And we have a bonus for you guys. Me and Lucas actually both had an extra bust, and it actually was the same person. So we're both going to name the player, and the player was CJ Henderson out of Florida. My problem with CJ was, while he does cover well, he does have issues with tracking the ball. And as a corner, kind of like similar with Laviska, if you can't track the ball well, how can you create turnovers, let alone deflect the ball? Another reason is Florida's defensive backs, besides Keanu Neal and Marcus May, have all been busts. I was very high on Hargraves, Quincy Wilson, Teez DeBoer, and they've been either average or just plain out busts. I've learned my lesson, and I'm staying away from Henderson. He is somewhat quick, but he will get burned at times. His tackling skills aren't ideal. He does tend to look at the quarterback too much, and he does need to add more weight to help with tackling. If I was an NFL GM and I was looking for corner, I'm taking him day 2.
My issues with Henderson was I think he relies too much on his just straight up athletic ability as a corner. In terms of 1v1, you want a guy who can lock down a receiver sprinting down the field. I think Henderson does a great job. I think in terms of hunting the ball, I think he's great. I think he's fluid. I think he's smooth. He's really smart. He knows how to use the boundary. But I have an issue with his tackling. I think it's inconsistent. I don't know how truly tough he is. I think before I talked about Rashard Lawrence and how that dude's just gritty, it can go. And I get that they play different positions, but competitive toughness is a pretty universal trait, and I just don't see that out of Henderson. I just think if you're wanting a guy whose sole job is to cover a receiver, I think Henderson is a pick. But that's not what a cornerback is. A cornerback does a lot more than just cover a receiver. Cornerbacks are responsible for tackling as well, and setting the boundaries and using the sidelines. And I don't know how consistent he will be with that. And also, I don't see that edge that a lot of successful corners have. That grit. I almost want to say, that mouth, that talking ability, or that I guess it all kind of ties back to competitive toughness. I just don't see that out of him. And I think, if he goes to the combine, I think he could show that there. And if he gets drafted, which I think could be a late day 1, early day 2 pick, he's going to have to show in training camp that he's got that grit and that he knows how to play fundamentally sound corner without relying too much on his just straight up athletic ability. Because if he just does that, he's going to get eaten alive. So I think Mike and I can both agree that CJ Henderson does have a really solid upside, but there are a lot of major concerns with his play. I personally think that he can be really successful. It's just a matter of the coaching staff and how he needs to prove that he's going to be successful. Alright, thank you guys for watching. This was our sleepers and busts for the 2020 NFL Draft. Stay tuned for the next video where Mike and I are going to discuss 6 players each that need to perform at the Combine in order to increase their draft stock. So players that we have in mind that we think have second, first round talent but aren't projected to be there. So stay tuned for that. Otherwise, guys, thanks for tuning in to the Sports Guide. Have a great rest of your day.
Hey sports fans, and thanks for watching the Sports Guide. If you haven't already, subscribe and join the team for news, highlights, predictions, debates, and mailbag. Follow us on Instagram and Twitter. All the links are down below in the description. And don't forget to hit the like button and leave us a question or two. Thanks guys, our next video is dropping soon.